Major implications for Texans Jags. This could go a number of ways. Either way, the result is going to be big. It is the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans digital content. This video is sponsored by BetUS. Go to BetUS, get a 150% bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit, 125% after that by using the promo code YouTube150. That's YouTube 150. Look, this game is not going to lead any of the national shows. And the reality is the Texans aren't where they want to be when it comes to being on that level. If they win this game, they could be headed into the right direction with the matchup in Buffalo, which is why I think there are major implications for this game. A win means a lot. A loss could mean even more. Reason number one why this game is so huge is early on, DeMeco Ryans, we're kind of still getting to know him as a coach, but the one thing that we always mention and the one thing we always say when talking about DeMeco Ryans is, man, his teams really respond. And after bad performances, his teams really respond. This is that opportunity. And there's the confidence from DeMeco Ryans that he could get that done. He's also kind of getting the benefit of the doubt where despite what we've seen from this Texans team, really 3 games in, they could easily be 0-3. There's no chance they could be 3-0. They could easily be 0-3, just like Jacksonville. You look at a couple of things from the Bears Colts game, and I know that's often, but let's just keep in mind, you look at an 0-3 squad, you kind of have a tendency to put your chin up and look down at them. You could easily be in the same situation that the Jags are. But DeMeco Ryans has shown an ability early on in his coaching tenure to, after poor performances, have his team react to his coaching or respond to his coaching. And if that doesn't happen today, then I think other questions emerge about this squad. Reason 2 why this is huge from a Texans perspective, and we'll get into the Jags perspective in a sec, is you have established a glaring flaw on the offensive line. Now, if you don't fix that, some problems kind of linger around all season. And I don't think all of the problems with the offensive line can be solved in one game, one day against the Jags, but you got to have a better performance than you had last week. If you don't, then that glaring flaw, that's not only going to prevent you from being, from good to great and getting up in that upper tier, it might prevent you from winning the division. So that's really important to fix. Number 3 is kind of from the Jags point of view. Right now, the Jags are 0-3. If the Texans beat the Jags, there's a chance Doug Peterson's coaching his last game in Jacksonville. And there's also a really, really good chance, and there's probably a good chance of this anyways, that Trevor Lawrence is playing for his 3rd new head coach after this season. Before the year, Shad Khan said this is the best Jags team of all time, which is pretty bold. They've had some really, really good teams. They've been to AFC championship games, but that was what he said. You start out 0-4, you can pretty much say the season is a wrap. Only twice in NFL history has a team started out 2-0 and all of the teams in their division started out 0-2. That's how rare it is. If the Texans lose to the Jags, everything I just said gets kind of thrown to the side, and the Jags have kind of a sense of survival, and their season's revived. They'll be 1 game behind the Texans. And Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence will probably be feeling pretty good about themselves. So it's really kind of it's early in the season, but this is kind of a make or break for the Jags in the short term and in the longest short term, because regardless of this, they could be looking for a new coach. But if they lose today and they start out 0-4 and the Texans have a 3-game jump on them to start the season, and this is a team that completely melted down last year. The last time Trevor Lawrence won a game, it was in Houston last year. That was a long time ago. That was when we didn't even think the Texans were going to make the playoffs. A lot changed since then, but that's how long it's been. So you have a chance to either bury the Jags or you have a chance to keep the Jags around. I think that's really, 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 really big. This is a make or break for the Jags. And from the Texans, is it the end of the world if you're in the pillow fight known as the AFC South? It's not the end of the world, but you had bigger goals. Whether they were realistic goals or not, you had bigger goals. You wanted to win the division, and then you wanted to make more noise in the playoffs and perhaps get to an AFC championship game for the first time in franchise history. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you lose this game, if you're the Texans, you're going to be facing one of the best teams in the NFL in Buffalo. So I don't like to chalk down multiple losses, but if you fall to 2-2, you could possibly be looking 2-3 right in the eyes. And you also give the Colts an opportunity to tie you in the division, despite their rough start and despite the fact that Anthony Richardson hasn't been good. So this is a big opportunity for the Texans to keep a firm grasp on the AFC South and perhaps push the Jags out of it. And it's a chance for the Jags to stay alive. So no matter what the result is, it's gonna be really, really significant for this Texan squad, and especially for the Jags. Does it mean that the Jags are more desperate? Maybe. Are they a dead team walking? Perhaps. But on the other side, Texans got problems of their own, and we'll see what that looks like. No Evan Ingram for the Jags. He was 4th in the league last year in receptions. No Jimmy Ward for the Texans, who would have probably had a hand in helping contain Evan Ingram. We know Tank Dell's not going to go for the Texans either. So how do they fill in there? That'll be interesting to see whether they use the run game or whether they use guys further down the depth chart at wide receiver, or maybe they get the tight ends a little bit more involved. That'll be something interesting to see. BetUS right now, they got all the props up. Again, YouTube 150 is the promo code. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to make this even bigger than we already have it, because I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts. I don't even want the 1 point. I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts money line with Anthony Richardson, and I am going to bet $100 to win 120. And look, I rallied yesterday in college football, so I feel a little bit better about myself when it comes to the wagering. But quite frankly, at this point, I just want to make this game even bigger than I already laid out. So let's imagine this. The Indianapolis Colts win. The Texans either win and they maintain that lead over the Indianapolis Colts with a 2-0 division start, or they're tied with the Colts and they're only 1 game up on the Jags. It's a big-ass game. I know the national, and I don't expect the national folks to pay attention to this. I'm not one of these like, well, the nation's not. No, they shouldn't be. Haven't earned that yet. But this could be really, really bad for the Texans if they lose this, and really, really good for the Jags. It's a really, really, really big one. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the video. Again, YouTube 150 is the code if you want to get in the game. Appreciate you for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Can't wait to get to the game. Post-game show right after Reaction Monday with SNL, 8 to 10 a.m. We got you covered when it comes to this Texan stuff. We'll also give you stuff going on behind the scenes. You've come to the right place to get the pulse of what's